morning we crossed the bridge all the way over there on the South Kaibab Trail. This afternoon we will be crossing the Colorado River on the Bright Angel Trail bridge. You with me to cross? Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Get out the GoPro.
This entire bridge is a metal grate. That's fun. Make sure I don't drop anything.
That's not scary at all.
Yeah, that was fun. Alright, we go right or left?
I assume right. No, I'm just kidding.
Right into trail. Haha.
All right, yo everybody. Here is another episode of the MindBody Marathon. And this is one that I've been looking forward to for quite some time. So on today's show is Zach Goulet and Adam Stackpole. And these were the gents that I was able to survive the Grand Canyon with and traverse the South Rim to the North Rim and back. And it was quite an experience. So this is the R3 episode, so rim to rim to rim. And this is probably one of the episodes I've been looking forward to the most.
This one's going to be fun.
This is going to be fun.
This is going to be a lot of fun.
So if anybody is looking to hike the Grand Canyon, potentially do R3 or just even R2, like north to south or south to north, this is an important episode for them. So if anybody listening, you know of somebody that's interested in doing this, or you yourself are interested in doing this, this is going to be informative. We're going to walk you through the pitfalls that we found. We're going to walk you through our stories of our trip, our epic experience. And then we're also going to make sure that it's informative. So that way, if you attempt it yourself, or if you know somebody that's going to attempt it, it's a much better experience for them.
I mean, our experience wasn't overall bad.
Dude, this was the epitome of type 2 fun.
Yeah.
Do you guys know that? The different types of fun. Like type 1 fun is like, it's fun and it's fun. It's fun now and it's fun later.
Right.
Type 2 fun is it's terrible now, but it's fun later. Like childbearing.
Right.
Or R3.
Is that the tiered? Is that how
R3 is like terrible, so it's never fun.
But it's
I don't know.
But it's a pregnancy and then R3 after that, right?
It's got to be close, man.
Kidney stone is like right in there somewhere.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, okay. My biggest takeaway from this was, I myself, anybody that knows me, I'm part of the Run Little Run Club. So I run little. And then I do these things and challenge myself, like marathons, being drastically undertrained. And this was one of those experiences where I was not adequately prepared for this. And it was really hard. It was really challenging.
Yeah, I would agree. I had aspirations to prepare a lot more. In reality, I probably got maybe 3 months of 40 miles a week, maybe 4 months. And a lot of it was at a pretty casual pace.
Yeah.
So, and
that's how it, I mean, yeah, like
you just don't these in life.
Like,
no.
They showed up like clowns. Like,
but-
yeah, we got this.
But the thing though was the thing that always like I come back to since we've been back from this is that guy that we ran into with like a mile and a half, 2 miles from the top of the North Rim.
Yeah.
And he was like, you guys look like you guys are doing R3. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, yeah, I'm doing it too. And we were like, oh, what time did you start? And he goes, midnight. And he goes, what time did you guys start? And we go 3:30. He goes, oh, see you in the canyon then. And like, we actually like kind of went through it at a decent clip comparative to most others.
So a little brass tacks here. So we did roughly by compadres
calculations,
roughly 45-ish miles. I just keep saying 46 because it sounds more baller.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah, so do
So
I.
it's-
GPS error.
To be fair, we did take a couple wrong turns.
All right, we are 40 minutes in, probably a couple miles. We took a wrong turn at Cedar Ridge or something. So, spiritual high, Zach's tying his shoes, doing our first nutrition.
That's why it's a little longer
Yeah.
than what a
And
normal rim to rim attempt is.
So we did it in roughly 15 and a half hours. He did it a little quicker. He took off at the end. He just needed to finish. I was actually stopping a little bit more to take photos and just enjoying the sunset. So I was about 15 minutes behind him. Now we did, so a little bit of details. We did South Kaibab down to Phantom Ranch, which is where the river is. Okay. And then we took the North Kaibab all the way to the north, turned around, North Kaibab back, Phantom Ranch. Then we took Bright Angel. So that's the details of our experience.
Which is
Pretty standard.
pretty standard. And I think probably the way that most people should do it if they're going to attempt it.
It's a little shorter because South Kaibab is
Yeah.
shorter than Bright Angel.
Right.
Yeah, and most importantly, when you're coming back up between 37 and 44 miles, you have additional water stops that exist on the Bright Angel
Yes.
Trail that do not exist
Right.
on South Kaibab.
Which really, really helped. I was asking Adam before we started.
All right, we are here at the water stop outside of the Phantom Ranch area. Yeah, there's some lights over there that are illuminating the walls of the canyon. Took us about 2 hours to get here, so starting to get a little bit of light. We got a little lost on the way up there, but we're doing good. Everybody's sweating except Zach.
Spaniards sold us.
Yeah, we ran into a Spaniard tour group that we were like, yes, it's this way.
Follow
He-
me.
He didn't know what he was doing. But we're at the lowest point now. Here comes the fun.
I don't want to ask you this because I have my opinions on this, but out of the three of us, like, which ones had the high highs and the low lows? Because, I'll give you an example. Like for myself, when I look back on this, I feel like I had a very balanced experience. Like I don't really feel like
Yeah, but that's you in general. I don't think you physically had a balanced experience. I think you mentally had a balanced experience.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would say almost like your pit was almost the worst up on the North Rim.
Yes, it was. It was. But there was points because I'll tell patients this, like when they ask us about our experience, where I felt like I was talking to myself when I was talking to you in certain points.
Yeah.
Like when we were making our way back to Phantom Ranch and you were so mad because every time we'd like crest the corner, you'd be like, where is it? Why are we there?
So basically what happened was, so that was the genius of this attempt. So we had three of
Yeah.
us there and we all came at it from all different walks of life and all
Exactly.
different spectrums. And in the end, you don't know when each of your members is going to hit their low spot, and you just sort of have to corral around them and just be there for them because you may be feeling good and they don't feel good. And maybe they didn't think through certain things, or maybe they fell at mile 30 like I fell.
We'll get
So
into that.
what Zach referenced was when we were coming back on North Kaibab to Phantom Ranch, I fell at roughly mile 30 and spanked my knee on a rock and was basically limping for the rest of the time. And I was really dying for Phantom Ranch because I needed a break to just rest my knee for a minute. And so that was the qualm there.
Yeah. I mean, I had a Garmin InReach Mini 2 on my pack, and when you fell, I remember standing there for maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes with
Ready to
the
hit that
SOS
button.
button out.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we're calling a chopper at this point. Like Leo's not getting up. And this speaks to the toughness of this man right here, because I would have quit. He got up, he starts walking, he's putting weight on it. And I mean, maybe 10 minutes later, we walked for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then 10 minutes later, you were jogging again.
Yeah.
I still don't know
Dude,
how.
What's amazing though is that we saw the helicopter, not even like
Yeah, we saw
With some lady just hobbling on.
I could have hopped on that helicopter, and I was like, I was so close to going up to that helicopter and asking if they had any ice.
So like,
All right, we made it to Phantom Ranch. On the way in, we saw somebody get picked up by a helicopter. I hear another one. Yeah, I see it flying over there. Oh, like, hey guys, that helicopter has a thing on it. It's got like a thing hanging down from it. It's hot. It's hot as shit. It's even hotter here than it was in the box, which is crazy. We're gonna fill it, make a climb, and try to beat the sunset. No pressure.
no pressure at all. Yo, I got a question for you, because looking back on it now, you don't, like, in the moment, because we're all in pain and
Yeah.
we're all like in discomfort at that point, we like, you can't comprehend it, but the momentum that was lost at that moment.
Yeah, that was critical.
And to give context too, like, so I had my very low point on the ascent, on like the final 2 miles of the ascent of the North Rim, and the elevation got me and my quads started to cramp. But then, like, we spent our time there, we refueled, and then I just kind of gave myself a chance, and then I knew that I wasn't going to cramp again, and then, like, that's when we started to get momentum.
Yeah.
Well, when that happened and that momentum was lost, how miserable was it going over those like little rock barrier walls and like steps and everything after that point? Because that was one thing about the canyon that I wasn't anticipating, especially when
Yeah.
we were down in it, was having to hop over all that stuff.
Yeah, the footing the footing was such that it wasn't like normal. We're in the Midwest here. It's not like a normal Midwest trail where you have like rocks and roots. The trails are actually pretty well like smoothed out for you, but then they would have like boulders like in the middle of them, and you just have to have good clearance, otherwise you're going down. They're not like rocks that you can sort of kick around. And so I got cocky, and we were humming pretty good on the way back. We were running like 8-ish minute pace, and we were looking to make some good time, and we were really cranking. And then I put my poles away. So prior to this, I was wondering, which brings up a good topic about poles. I was wondering, should I even take them? And overwhelmingly, people were like, yeah, you should, because you'd never really done more than 30 miles, 50K, 31 miles prior to that. And, they help you on the ascents and the descents and just to control yourself. Well, pride comes before a fall, literally. And I was cocky, and I wanted to put my poles away so we could just hum through that portion, because it was 108 at that part of the canyon, which Adam later found out. We thought it was about 105 at the time, but Adam had it confirmed later that it was about 108.
Yeah, so I had to technically calculate it based on the temperatures measured at the top of the canyon, and comparing it to the past month of data. So I looked up all kinds of
Can you tell this
NOAA
guy's an
data.
engineer here?
What
It was the hottest week of October on record since 1935.
that's amazing.
I'm not going to hold them up, but I printed out little graphs that show the literal the temperature data for that. And that Monday and Tuesday. So the day we actually went, the weather station wasn't recorded, so I had to calculate it. But
Okay.
2 days before, it was 105, and the forecast was cooler. So I think it was at least 105 degrees.
Right.
And I can tell you right now, it was unbearably hot. I've been in the Mojave Desert before.
Yeah.
I've been in 120-degree heat. When we were in Phantom Ranch and stepped out into the heat,
To fill
because that
up.
water
Yeah.
spigot was not in the shade, I mean, it felt like stepping into an
Yeah.
oven. It was brutal.
Yeah, so that's when I fell. Was I pull my poles away, and usually the poles would catch you, and then just stamped my knee on a rock. Well, that was like basically if you're watching a football game and you're up by a touchdown, but all of a sudden you throw a pick six, and then now the game is tied. It's like, oh no. It feels like a loss, even though the game is tied. It felt like a loss at that point. Everybody was concerned about what was going to happen next, and I was just like praying pretty much the whole time from that point on. But luckily, they were willing to slow down and kind of keep me, my spirits high, and we were able to progress through. but that was that pretty much took the wind out of our sails. So we had hoped. So again, back to a little bit of the basics with us. Our goal was 12 to 14 hours. Okay, that was our goal. I would say by the time we got down South Kaibab, we pretty much threw that out the window.
Yeah, I think so. Going sequentially, the first major mistake we made. I mean, when you're going down South Kaibab, first off, when you get to Cedar Ridge, turn right. Don't go straight.
Yes, there's like a little overlook there that I'm sure in the day is beautiful, but at night you can't see anything.
We went straight, then came back, then went straight again. We wasted like 20 minutes and ran an extra almost a mile or something. Or I don't recall.
And our error was we followed a Spanish tour guide.
When in doubt, never follow a Spanish tour guide.
See.
He was like trying to rock climb his way down. He's like, follow me.
Dude, this doesn't feel right.
He's like, like, this is it. This is right.
He didn't want to admit he was wrong. But I don't even think he told the group. He was just like,
he's like, we're just
wrap it. Like, follow those guys.
Going down.
Adam was pretty ticked at that point.
That was like, probably my low point because I was like, we're barely into this, and he was already fucked up so bad.
Yeah.
I would say that and the technicality of the descent in South Kaibab.
Yeah.
I was expecting to go quicker.
Yeah.
A lot of those stairs, when you're going down, it's not just a stair. They're so dusty, and some of the trails are like running on a gravel road.
And it was, we were wearing headlamps, and it was
our ruts
in
there.
Well,
and with the headlamp, the shade covered. You actually were stepping in points where, because the stair was so steep and the hole was so deep, you couldn't actually see what you were stepping into.
Yes.
There's rebar,
multiple
sticking
missteps, numerous times. Yeah, rebar sticks out numerous times. Not rhubarb, but rebar.
I said rebar.
No, I know, but I always was joking that I was having fantasies of rhubarb throughout
were you really?
Yes, actually. You don't remember that joke? Anyways, long story short, I jammed my back a couple times.
Yeah, my back
still flared up. Jammed a little bit because you were misstepping down. So the descent on South Kaibab is absolutely no joke. And I was joking with him that by mile 3, my quads were shaking because you just can't mimic 1,000 feet a mile on descent. Like, it's 20% descent. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think we had an appropriate pace. We might have benefited from more elevation training. It's just difficult to do in Northeast Ohio, right? I mean, I went to Boston Store and did 3 hills out of Boston a bunch of times. That one hill by Covered Bridge, I went up and down that. But even that, it's you might get a fraction of the elevation, but you won't get that.
Well, there's so much stuff that we could tailor now to smooth out all of these wrinkles.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. Okay, so we had poles, so we used that. We had explained the GPS setup that you had a little bit.
So I had my watch, my Koros Pace 2, which was fine for the run. It had adequate battery life, but it did deviate some signal wise.
So when we look back on the trail, it had us at times like randomly jaunting up to the top of the canyon and back down, which was kind of a weird thing.
Right.
And then I had a Garmin InReach as an SOS device, and also to keep our wives,
which is strongly recommended. A lot of people had them.
Yes. We were sending consistent signals out to our significant others about where we were out on the trail and pacing. And so we got back and we read about 70 unread messages about them texting each other and all that and being worried about us. Because when you're in the middle of the canyon, you genuinely do not get signal. Like you just do not.
I have a funny story, but finish first.
Even the GPS gets spotty signal. So I looked at the actual trail distances relative to what my watch gathered, and certain segments of our run were as much as 0.6 miles long. I mean, so talking about being in the box, right? The canyon walls are really tight there. The signal was way off. That particular section between Cottonwood and Phantom Ranch, don't trust your GPS at that point.
So what he's referring to is the hot box. I'll put up a picture here, and basically it's, you get to the river, and the North Kaibab Trail is really long. It's the huge portion of it. But when you're on the south rim and you're doing that famous look to the north rim, there's like a sliver of the canyon that you'll see. That's called the hot box. That's basically the hottest portion of the canyon. And it's basically where the walls are the closest of the canyon. And it's actually, you're running along the Bright Angel Creek, essentially.
Bright Angel Creek.
And which is amazing. You know, you want to stop numerous times and like freshen up and stuff. don't drink the water, but just dip your hat and all that stuff. But basically, those canyon walls were so close that the GPS signals and our cell phone signals, it just wouldn't work.
I have a funny
What were we
story
gonna
about
say?
that. So like after the dust settled and everything, like at like day or two after, I was talking to Jacqueline. That's my wife. And she was like, yeah, you know, like when you guys were like doing it, there was like a point where like Lauren and Samuel were like talking about how like inspiring it was and like how awesome it was and like being super positive. And I'm like the only one here like thinking, is this necessary? Is this actually necessary? This seems pretty stupid. Like, do they really need to be doing this? I was like, leave it to Jacqueline to be the one to.
That's really funny.
I mean, I clearly bought it for my wife, but I did have your wife in mind when
As
I
you
was
should
purchasing
have.
it.
As you
I
should have.
remembered Jacqueline
Yep.
from Burning River, and I thought
Yep.
she's gonna need this as much as Lauren.
Well,
is.
now she's game for any of all this stupid stuff that I want to get into. Like she's like on board for the 100K now because like if you get through the Grand Canyon, which I would say we
Dude,
did,
that canyon, that
Dude,
thing makes you earn it.
it does.
And that was the theme
It
on the
does.
Bright Angel Trail back. It's like,
Yes.
you know, when people go, oh, my favorite national park is Zion or Bryce or whatever, I'm like, you've never been in the canyon.
No.
They can't, you know, most people just look at it from the edge and maybe hike down a little bit. But when you're in the belly of that beast, those views,
Mhm.
those rock formations, like I highly encourage people to do this. It's a very memorable experience.
And like, I don't know about you guys, but like after doing stuff like this, like all of the ultra stuff that I've done, but especially this, life in general just doesn't seem as like hard or stressful because you put
Yeah.
yourself in there and you like, dude, the amount of dread when one of you guys were like, yeah, we only got 9.6 miles left to go, dude. My soul just dropped to the bottom of my feet
Okay,
when someone said
So
that.
this was it. So what he's referencing. So basically, when we were coming back through the hot box and I had fallen and our momentum was taken out, the interception, everything. We spend like what, a half hour at Phantom Ranch?
Roughly, yeah.
And I had 3 bags of chips, an iced tea, and lemonade. And I was like just trying to revive myself, just hoping that something would help my knee out. And then we had assumed, based on his calculations, which is what Adam's looking at right now, based on kind of trail things that we had heard and what his GPS was saying, we had assumed we had around 8 miles left from that point on. And then we see a ranger.
That was me trusting my GPS.
True,
at that point,
which is why you can't trust the GPS. What you need to, which is a critical point, you need to trust what the rangers are saying, and that tends to translate to like things you read online. So when somebody says like if you're going to like an R3 page on Facebook or you're looking up like distances of the trails, those are the more accurate distances. Do not trust your GPS.
Especially if you are borrowing a watch from Dr. Matt.
This is true. So we thought it was 8 miles back on Bright Angel. And I see a ranger right at the start of that. And he goes, oh, it's 9.5 miles. And then I told them, dude, it's 9.5 miles back. And we were like,
it was like a gut punch.
It just was hard. And on my end, so what he's joking about is Dr. Matt's watch. He gave me this old GPS watch. Because again, the Apple Watch is just absolutely terrible with GPS. It said that I had already covered like 55 miles up to that point. It was like so inaccurate.
Like what happened?
And I was like
watch?
wearing these watches that were so inaccurate and like just giving me all this false data nonstop.
Well, and that's like another good point too about all this. And I think this is like, again, like seeing myself in that moment of your despair.
Yeah.
Where like I think there was like a point where I was like, welcome to Ultra.
Yeah.
And because like,
but not at any point did I doubt it.
No, not at all. Not at all. But like what I've learned through my experience is like the experience is just what the experience is. Like you can't wish upon anything, because if you start wishing, then you start to get into your head, and it's just like, you just got to roll with the punches.
Yeah. So what I should have done when I started to panic when we were trying to get into Phantom Ranch, and I was just getting, essentially pissed, and I just needed to put my head down and literally 1 foot at a time, and just not look towards the horizon to where the ranch was, and just head down, 1 foot head down, 1 foot. And then that's the secret, I think, ultimately to these longer distances, which I think you had to do at the end, huh?
You 100% had to do at the end.
Yeah. So, I would say my low points, you guys have talked about your low points. I had a lot.
Well, probably about a mile ago, I'm having some nausea. I told Leo and Zach I'm gonna keep moving at the last water stop because I have water everything I need. And I'm afraid if I stop, I might struggle. But that big crack down there, I don't know if you can see it. That's where we came from. We're all the way across that up the other side, and then we're coming back up this side. Less than 1,000 feet of elevation to go. Let's bring it home.
I had a low point in the car before we even got there.
Well, with them glasses and contacts.
We did a training run in CVNP where Zach wore his glasses and they fogged up. And I didn't realize until 30 minutes into our drive that I didn't put my contacts in. So I had nightmares of that and panicked for a minute. But
then we realized we're in the Grand Canyon, which there's no water
there's
in the
no
air.
humidity whatsoever. It was fine. I wore my glasses the entire time.
So that's
It was not
also
a
good to
problem.
note. Like if you wear glasses, it is so dry, you're good. It's not going to fog up.
Yeah.
Or I imagine better to wear glasses.
Honestly,
With
I
the
wear,
dust?
I wear
Yeah.
dailies, and I think it was a blessing in disguise that I did not have my contacts that day.
Yeah.
Because
of the dust.
Yeah, because of the dust and the dryness. I think my contacts might have fallen out. I did have a pair of glasses in my pack, so I could have pulled those out.
Nice.
But I would say, no, that was a low point for me. Another low point was probably ascending the North Rim. I mean, I was ready to take the shuttle back and call it rim to rim. Talk about a balanced experience. And it's funny to me after the fact to hear that you all had that thought, because I never thought you had that thought. You were so confident in the way you rallied us at the North Rim that,
Really?
Yeah.
Well, Zach, when he got to the North Rim, basically we were shocked at how hard the ascent was, because we saw that guy, which was what he was talking about. He's like, "Oh, dude, it's only like another mile, 2 miles up," which ended up being the hardest ascent of the whole thing.
I'm fairly confident his words were, "This next part sucks."
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I go, do you have any words of wisdom for us?
Yes.
And he said that, and I think we had that in the back of our minds when we were making our way up, and it was just, the switchbacks just are literally never ending. And you're looking at the top of the canyon.
Here we are, boys. Yee-yoo! Did you hear that? Woo!
Look at that, dude.
Oh,
That is stunning.
amazing. That's where we're going.
That's where we need to be.
Let's make it happen. Ooh. I am not gonna like looking at this
Just looking at a bunch of shrubs
360. Yeah, oh yeah, right now it is.
right here.
The down looking is
This is a good one.
oh fuck that. I can't. I pay people to do my gutters, man. This is not for me.
And you're like, how is it still so far away? But then Adam and I were together. Zach was definitely his low point. But Adam and I were together, and we saw blue sky on the other side of the rock. And we're like, oh my God. We like literally almost cried.
Yeah.
And
I wasn't there for any of this.
But
This is
here's the thing
amazing.
with Zach, though. The thing about Zach and ultras is that he doesn't put out any negative energy. And he just basically was just this consistent buoy of energy. It was always like a tone of positive and a tone of clarity. And I think all of us were kind of hit different spectrums, and he just kind of kept us pretty balanced.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, I wasn't feeling that internally.
Well,
but
because at that point, so like I kept thinking, because like at that point my quads were cramping, and it was to the point where they were just like consistently like wanting to like just contract and hold that. And I dealt with that before. And so when I've dealt with that before, it was find a position to where I can at least relieve some pressure and then just kind of roll with it. And then I was like, all right, if it's bad on the way up, it shouldn't be bad on the way down. I just need to try to get down as much fuel and as much hydration as I can, and then at least give myself a chance. And so like I knew when I got up there that I was like, I'm really tired, but just let's take our time. And yeah, like
So we
I
got
didn't
to
even think of that.
we got to the North Rim and roughly covered 22-ish miles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was like 24,
well, it was
Mm.
probably 22. The Jeep, so
22.
the GPS
Well, because
probably
Bright
said
Angel was a little
20.
longer, so
Yeah.
but
Well,
anyways,
I had
right
24 and
around there.
21.
22, 23 what miles, whatever. And we all three looked at each other and was like, this was the hardest thing we've ever done.
And we got to
Like-
go do it again.
And we got to do it again. Like up to that point. And he had
Here we are, heading back down Cocodino Overlook, or where I said Coconino Overlook. I can't talk today.
You can see Humphreys.
Yeah, you can see Mount Humphreys there in the background.
Did you get it in the camera?
I mean, it's a 360 camera, so it's getting everything, hopefully.
Yeah.
It'll be hard to see though. It's like 5.6K all around.
Dude, is your Achilles doing better?
It is actually.
Good.
Zach could run the farthest of all of us. He had actually done 50 miles. Had you done 50 miles?
No, I've done probably half a dozen 50Ks.
Yeah. So I'd run 2 50K distances, never a formal event. And so, but again, up to that point, that was the hardest thing I'd ever done. And you just, you realize you had to go back.
Yeah.
And, you're thinking about like a lot of different things. You have blisters, you have chafing, you have fueling, you have heat, you have all these there's a lot of things to consider. Now, one of the things that cracked me up the most about this was the fact that all three of us are afraid of heights, but yet the whole time we were like not concerned about like
it was far off our range.
like inches from death essentially the whole time.
You had a quote. I remember it. We were on the descent of the North Kaibab Trail down to Manzanita, and you said, "Inches away from oblivion." You just yelled it out.
And it like echoes.
Oblivion.
Yeah,
It's
I
so
am the
close,
kind of
dude.
person. I'm the kind of person that pays somebody
Dude,
to clean my gutters. I am not. I have. I had to knock myself out for the flight. I can't.
dude, that GoPro footage that you got of us ascending the North Rim, people
We're gonna put
love
it up there.
that.
There it is. Getting near the top of the North Rim. Almost there. We are just leaving the North Kaibab Trail. One rim down, one rim to go.
Love it.
Yeah, we're gonna
Love
put it
it.
up there, and
Yeah,
dude, it's
pretty astonishing.
So think of the canyon. It's basically like this, like a U straight down, and then the hot box in the middle is kind of flat. And those ascents and descents, you can't look over the edge. I mean, you are literally right there, and it is thousands of feet every single turn.
Yeah, you guys kept saying, "Oh, look at that," and there were times where I was just like, I can't. No,
Dude, my most terrifying moment was when we were coming down to Phantom Ranch and the sun was just starting to like rise and you had the bright light from Phantom Ranch and then you could see the outline of the canyon wall
Yeah.
and you're like, we're still on like the edge of the canyon right now, like on the wall coming down, and it's like
this hasn't even started
and
yet.
we can't see anything.
So that was actually interesting to me. So when we went, we were going October 3rd, 2024. It was prior to the start of the large construction project for the Trans-Canyon Pipeline. There was actually active construction happening.
Yeah.
And so we're coming down at 4:30 in the morning and there's light bouncing off the canyon. And when we finally get to the bottom, we see why. There's actually construction crews working at night where the Bright Angel Bridge or Bright Angel Trail Bridge connects to the Bright Angel Campground area, just to the south of Phantom Ranch. So it was a very eerie sight to have the canyon illuminated from the bottom, essentially.
Was there a point when we were ascending the North Rim? Because like when I was able to finally get my body to respond to like what I put down at the top and I caught up to you guys, when we were like halfway down the North Rim, I knew that we were going to finish.
Yeah.
Was there a point for you guys where it's like, this is going to be hard? Because in the back of my head, I was dreading the ascent up because I was like, I don't know how my quads are going to do. But I was like, we're going to finish this thing. Was there a point for you guys where you guys knew?
I never doubted it, but I was very encouraged at how we responded to that 45-minute rest period at North Rim, and we felt spunky. We got to that.
Yeah.
We were just cruising down the North Rim.
Yeah, I think and it's funny because on the way in, we were like, let's not talk about the plan. We were psyching ourselves out. But you want this? But on the way, like the second we turned around at the North Rim, I had so much more confidence. And a big reason why, once you complete the descent from South Kaibab and you're in Phantom Ranch and then you're going to Cottonwood and Manzanita, you think of it as a relatively flat stretch, but in reality, there's about 1,500 feet of elevation between Phantom Ranch and Cottonwood. Yeah. And it's up. And there are, most of it is gradual, but there are some sections where it is a little steep and you don't see it coming. And I think I kind of burned myself out on the way out.
Yeah.
But knowing that it was not just the descent we had, but also that gradual downhill into Phantom Ranch, I think that gave me some confidence as well. Because we were, I mean, with the exception of when we had to eventually slow down, we were quicker, and we all had that rejuvenation from the North Rim. We felt good.
Yeah,
and I think that's important to, if you're going to attempt rim to rim to rim, be conservative at the beginning, especially on the technical descent to South Kaibab, and that initial, once you get out of the box, that initial ascent up to Cottonwood, some parts of that trail get kind of hilly and technical. I don't know exactly where you guys stand, but for me, I felt like I put in a little too much effort there, and that's one of the big reasons why I felt like I needed so much time to rally
at the North Rim.
Was because because honestly, my quads, I never had an issue with my quads cramping. I actually felt pretty good in my legs. It was just my engine. I felt like I overdid it a bit in that flat section because it wasn't really flat.
It wasn't. No, that took me back too.
One of the things that I think we need to discuss here too that I think is important is that Adam had a little bit of a added factor of being type 1 diabetic. And so anybody listening, potentially dealing with something like that, definitely a metabolic disorder. Adam was very dialed in and quite impressive. I mean, I've had patients where they've been type 1 diabetic and they'll finish runs in the 400s. Like I've heard of that.
I think,
and this guy you never got over 200, did you?
I got into the mid two. It was like 215, 220,
which
probably
is
my
crazy considering we were at 108 temperatures.
Now, couple disclaimers. I am technically in my honeymoon phase, and I am LADA, which is like type 1.5. So I was on insulin for a number of months earlier this year. I'm actually off insulin right now. But it still requires me. I have to be very careful about my carbohydrate intake. I have to be very diligent about my diet. Thankfully, when moving, I can get away with my semi-normal. It's a little more spaced out, but a regiment of goo that's okay. But yeah, I have to make sure I balance it with protein and fat. Otherwise, it's one thing to be in the canyon and have nutrition problems. It's another thing to go into ketoacidosis or something.
Well, it also, like, in that moment when we were in the box and like in the canyon, and I kind of look at it as like that's when we kind of started our ascent.
All right, we are here at the water stop outside of the Phantom Ranch area. Yeah, there's some lights over there that are illuminating the walls of the canyon. Took us about 2 hours to get here, so starting to get a little bit of light. We got a little lost on the way up there, but we're doing good. Everybody's sweating except Zach.
Spaniards sold us.
Yeah, we ran into a Spaniard tour group that we were like, yes, it's this way.
Follow me.
He didn't know what he was doing. But we're at the lowest point now. Here comes the fun.
because it was just more gradually uphill, like more uphill than I thought. And like, for me, I think anxiety kind of overwhelmed me at that point. And I think it did for you, Adam. Like you and I were pretty anxious at that point because our heart rates were
elevated.
and you were just kind of cruising.
Yeah, I have this. Yeah.
But then when I got to Cottonwood Campground, it all went away because like the thing that I look back on with the canyon is that the canyon, it was one of the most humbling things that I've ever done, the most challenging thing that I've ever done. But if you are observant while you're in the canyon will give you a little bit of reprieve when you need it the most. And for me, it was finding that like little cutoff into the stream and then where the stream kind of cut through the trail. And I was like, we're good because there's checkpoints. We have checkpoints and we're only a couple miles, like 3 miles away from Phantom Ranch. We're only a couple miles away from Cottonwood Campground. So if you take advantage of that, like at least you're going to set yourself up. And that just like took away the anxiety. And so what I think happened was because I got too excited at Cottonwood Campground and I was like, I want to push the north ascent.
Well, one of the things that I would say too that's interesting is like in this kind of, you were talking about this about heart rate. My cardiovascular system was fine the whole time. Like I felt very in control. I get a little dizzy at the end because I made an error. I only packed sugary, goos and blocks and stuff, and I didn't pack any real food. So I would say I was out there for 15 hours. I really did need some real food at some point. And so I would highly encourage people to have some food unless you're really trying to complete this in like 10 hours or something like that, some crazy time, because like just a little bit of protein and definitely some fats like are going to be needed there because you just get sick of the sugary stuff. So I got pretty lightheaded at the very end because of that. But for me, the biggest takeaway right when I got out of the canyon, and Zach and I kept joking about this, is squats, freaking weightlifting, just getting stronger. Like
gym stuff.
You just cannot mimic 1,000 feet a mile. You just can't mimic it
especially
until
with
you
stairs.
do it.
I'm not getting anywhere near that. That's way too. Waka waka doo doo, yeah.
Inches away from obliteration.
But you gotta admit, going down feels so much nicer than going up.
What's that?
You gotta admit, going down feels so much nicer than going up.
Oh my God. Dude, I worked myself out of that hole.
Yeah. I feel better at this point now than I did coming up this, that's for sure.
That's why I had to take it easy because I inhaled a bunch of food.
Bib.
And then I let out a massive burp.
There's Manzanita down there.
Yeah.
We'll do a water stop there, replenish.
Yes.
We gotta eat. I gotta get another food in before we get into the box.
I'm ready to put on my ice cold cooling suit that I got off Amazon. I basically waddle like a penguin, but I'll be at 32 degrees in 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a tough spot. Watch out, there's rebar sticking out right there. The log's gone. These parts are a little tough, but it'll get better. We'll keep trucking.
I joked about just going to the Y and spending like 3 hours on a Stairmaster, just absolutely destroying yourself. That's the closest.
It's true though.
But as fast as it goes, and just
it was insane. Like there was points. I had a patient today ask me like, was there anything that you tried to adapt on your way back? And I said, well, I realized, and I was mimicking you at one point because for whatever reason you got into this rhythm. This is when like after like Leo stamped his knee on the rock. And
yeah, they had took off and
so we were like kind of like yo-yoing a little bit.
Disclaimer for our wives: we never left each other behind. We were always within eye shot of it. And I made a point of that. If I knew I was cruising, I would stop and look back and make sure, okay, I can see Zach.
Keep your team in eyesight.
Especially for me, because I knew if something went wrong, I had the device and had to hit the button. So I was not going anywhere. There was never a point, ladies, we did not leave each other behind.
But I did hide out in that shade.
Dude, so did we. So actually, dude,
So there's like literally a foot of shade the whole trail, like literally maybe 2 feet of shade.
Yeah.
this
Okay.
is funny.
And it's like bushes that like close on the trail and you have to kind of like scurry through. That's literally the only shade you get over the whole 46 miles.
There was a point where Adam goes, "Hey, let's wait for Leo and let's take advantage of being in this shade right now. Let's just
And
walk
then I
extra
took
slow."
advantage of it too.
So we're like walking all awkward. But I forget what I was gonna say. Oh, but there was a point where I was running behind you and I was observing how you were using your poles. And so again, like a little bit of technique can get involved. And like I never understood this where it's like practice your poles and learn technique. Well, in certain parts, Adam would, like if we were going over these like little like rock walls, he would put his poles in front of the rock wall and kind of pole vault himself over it. Or if it was like an awkward step, he would plant his poles in front of the step and again use that. And I was like, oh my God, that's genius. And like that's where I found momentum. And
Yeah.
then because of my quads, I was so worried about them cramping again that I realized that if I just took a bigger step onto the step and I had a flat foot, that I was actually spending less time in the air. So rather than going this way, I was more and less going that way, like just staying
Mhm.
straight on. And it relieved my quads so much. So like be attentive to all, like be attentive to a lot of
I
this
had
stuff.
never used poles before. And initially when I was using the poles, I was running with them like this. And then I realized later that I was making the error, which is why I ended up with freaking rhabdo probably. Because you basically like do
we
like
gotta talk about that.
skiing poles like this. And then that kind of helps like propel you forward.
Yeah.
And I realized like literally like 30 miles in, like that's what they were doing.
It's just like your book. You want to plant them. I mean, when you're just trying to propel yourself forward and support
Yeah.
yourself, you're actually trying to plant where it's kind of at your, under your
Momentum.
center mass,
Yeah.
or maybe a little behind you even. But on those descents, those technical points, I mean, I was literally trying to save my legs by using
Yeah.
my triceps, like using my arms to replace them, or to
Leo
to
was just trying to be a tarantula out there.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, I know
Trying to be
exactly.
that scorpion.
Well, so I did end up with rhabdo. So let's talk about that real quick. So basically, if you go beyond your body's capacity to break down protein, and what happens is, you see this a lot in CrossFit, you see this a lot in ultras, where somebody works out at such a high rate that they're such high protein breakdown that it essentially overloads the kidneys, and the kidneys can't clear it. So you kind of become you get some kidney toxicity, essentially, is what happens. I didn't understand those symptoms. So basically, like I had immense pain in my quads. It quite literally felt like I had been stabbed in them and I was walking around all the time with a knife in my quads. I don't know what that feels like, but that's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Now, when I flew a red eye back on Saturday. We ran on Thursday, so we had Friday, Saturday. And then I flew a red eye back on Saturday. That red eye
It was
probably
Saturday night, right?
Saturday night.
Sunday morning. Yeah.
to Sunday morning, exactly. So I got a little dehydrated and I basically went into rhabdo after that. So when I got off the plane, like I didn't sleep very well because it was overnight flight from Vegas. And so my stepdaughter was having some treatment here at the clinic, and the medical doctor was like, "Oh, how are you doing, from your Canon run?" Because I came in and took my stepdaughter in, and she's a medical doctor that works here, and she's also an ER doc. And she's like, "Just so you know, you look terrible." And she goes, and then she kind of took a step back and she's like, "Let me ask some cardinal signs here." So then she started asking me more questions. And then I didn't realize that when you go into rhabdo, all you basically feel is pain and nausea. And every time I was moving, I was like nauseous. So basically what they do for rhabdo, if you ever get it, you want to go to the ER and you want to get pushed with fluids, or go to an IV lounge and you want to get 2 liters of fluid pushed through with a bunch of peptides, because you have to flush your kidneys of all the protein degradation that you did from the trauma. Now, one of the cardinal signs is, and this is interesting, you have no motivation for anything other than nausea. I was never hungry. I was never tired. If you think about like that trip, like in the hotel room, I was like, I could barely sleep.
Yep.
Like I was barely hungry. I was barely tired. I barely felt like I had to use the bathroom. I was never thirsty. Those are big red flags for rhabdo, is that basically the only thing you can deal with is just pain and
Well,
nausea.
Dude, it was crazy because like you would get hungry, but then we would get down there and you would order a bunch of food, and then me and Adam would eat it all.
Yeah.
The nacho plate, the box we brought back.
Soggy.
Oh, dude, I forgot about that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
was,
like,
oh, God.
it's
that was
like
beautiful.
it's like you knew that you had to eat and you wanted to, but then you would get there and you're like, no.
Yeah,
Like-
I don't know. It's so keep that in mind. Whenever you do some crazy thing like you're massively underprepared for, keep an eye out for rhabdo. Hydration is critical
Yeah.
because you have to flush the kidney with all the toxins and the protein degradation. It's really critical to do that.
So can I ask you this then, because you can elaborate on this more? So I've had a lot of patients tell me like, how was my electrolytes? And I was like, well, I put 2 like elements into my bottle every,
we did well with the electrolytes, I think.
and the common thing that I would get back is like, that's a lot of sodium.
Yeah, that's fine.
And it's like, you need
Yeah.
that.
If
You need that.
any of those people had seen your shirt
Yeah.
at the end of the
Yes.
run, they would have realized that most of that sodium ended up on the outside of your body.
Look, anybody listening, water follows sodium in the body. Okay. If you just drink a bunch of water, you're going to get a water toxicity, hyponatremia, which basically means low sodium levels. That will kill you. That's terrible. You need sodium in your body to tell water where to go. It's classic high school physics or high school biochemistry. Basically, like in the cell, water follows sodium to dilute it. So that's a signal for how your body knows where to place water. If you do not have sufficient sodium levels, that's a problem. We use the product called Element. We all endorse that because it's at a ratio with sodium, potassium, and magnesium at the ratio that's in your bloodstream. And studies show that when you do that, it absorbs the quickest. Plus, it also has stevia in there, which helps to balance your blood sugar. I think one of my biggest issues at the tail end of it was I was so sick of sugary things that I then started to neglect a little bit, even Element, because I couldn't take in anything sugary. That's
where I think for you should definitely have the unflavored ones.
Yeah, unflavored. But I just think, look, I was joking with my wife. She's like, what would you do different? I'm like, I would make a high school or middle school lunch. Peanut butter and jelly and chips. That's what I would do.
Dude,
That was
this dude right here bummed at the North Rim my salt and vinegar chips. He's like, dude, can I get some of them salt and vinegar chips?
Dude, that was a game changer.
that was advice that we prior to doing this, I know I personally spent hours watching YouTube videos of other people who had gone out and attempted it, and also reached out to a number of people on Facebook, on Reddit. Got great feedback from like Jim at Western Reserve and Bob from the Trail Enthusiasts for Burning River group, and a lot of other people from that group, honestly, that have done this before as well. And one of the common themes in that advice was to pack food. And you see it at 50Ks as well. I have fond memories of eating tater tots and bacon 15 miles into Nomies and, crushing like burritos halfway into Fools.
It's so simple.
It's so different than the like road marathon. Like you have enough fuel to get yourself like to this 2.x hour mark, and that's it.
And that just comes from experience, like having done the ultras that I've done and realized that chips and pickles really help my stomach out. But then also listen to the Connie Gardner episode.
Yeah.
She just nonchalantly is just like, you'll be fine. Just take a sandwich down. Just take a sub down.
Dude, oh my God.
Like,
and I obviously was on that episode and I didn't even listen to her. And I didn't consume any calories after Phantom Ranch, which was how long?
That was probably at least
3
hours
2
before
hours.
we finished. Because it was 9.
It was
probably closer to 3.
I think it was closer to 3 hours. Yeah.
Because we were, especially towards the last.
What
few
time did
miles of
we
Switchback,
get out of
Switchbacks.
Phantom Ranch? What time was that at?
It
Do we know?
was. Oh my goodness.
Because I can't remember.
But
I
want to say it was around 3 o'clock.
I was
it was
around
3
3 o'clock.
on the dot.
Okay, that's what it was.
Sunset was at 6:24, and we missed it.
We're coming out of Phantom Ranch, and we got to go up that. And we got probably, when we left it was 9.7 miles, so probably a little less than that. I don't know, 9.4. if we can do it in roughly 20 minutes a mile, we can beat the sunset, but that's not looking super likely, so let's see what happens. 9.5?
Yeah.
Probably from the ranger station, yeah. All right. I'll put this away, we'll get jogging.
Me and Leo got out at like 7.
Yeah, I was like 6:45. Yeah, that's about right. Or
So
6:50. Yeah.
that sandwich, I'm not gonna lie. So I packed a bagel with turkey, ham, and cheese on it.
He had to fend some squirrels off
Yeah,
for it.
well, the squirrels were getting after those salt and vinegar
Yeah.
scraps that you left in that bag.
Great piece of advice. Protect your food at Phantom Ranch.
Yeah,
The squirrels are afraid of nothing.
Dude,
They're beasts.
they
down
don't
there.
care about
They do
anything.
They just
not.
own that canyon.
Yeah. And they'll own you and your food. Yeah, and they try to snag my like Ziploc bag with my salt and vinegar chips in there, and then they got into a fight. These 2 squirrels got into a fight.
They're
over
like
something.
inches from you, and they weren't even
They don't
scared.
care
It's
at all.
crazy.
They don't care.
You can see their crazy eyes twitching and stuff.
But real food. But real food is the game changer.
Okay,
Real
so
food and a way to combat nausea. To combat nausea.
okay, so go into that.
So this was another piece of advice that a number of people, and again, thank you to all the people that we reached out to asking for advice prior to attempting this.
That's what we're hoping this episode is for people.
We were concerned about, we knew it was going to be hotter than the average October. We knew that, while we had some experience in ultra marathon running, we had never, at least for myself and Leo, had never attempted something this difficult and this much distance. So the idea of missing nutrition marks, becoming nauseous, and not being able to intake nutrition and being trapped in the canyon was something I was scared of. Advice I was given was to get ginger candies. So I went on Amazon and bought a bag of these gingins. They're just little hard
Dude, those
ginger
are game
candies.
changers, man.
They were game changer. I remember being nauseous on the North Rim. Had one of those within 5 minutes. Fine. My other low point, going back to our conversation about low points, was probably the last 4.5 miles. I had missed coming out of Phantom Ranch. I ate and I lost track. I did not eat
Havasu
well.
Springs, this guy was definitely low.
I was nauseous from there to the
Dude,
finish.
it looked like you got in trouble on like a school field trip and you were told to go back to the bus.
I don't know if that was mentally my low point, but it was probably physically my low point.
It was actually really funny because at that point, on the way back, we kept bartering elements versus gingins. Remember that?
Trade you? Yeah.
Yeah. So like,
Well, and you
I had a
bartered
bunch
me.
of gingins. I don't know why I had all the gingins, but I kept bartering all the
Well,
elements.
and you bartered element and salt tabs with me before we got into the bus.
Me and Zanita.
Yeah.
We were trading flavors
See,
because I
but
couldn't
that-
do the mango.
But that's really
Cool.
like honestly though, like as funny as it all is, because like I think it's just all like also part of the experience. Like you're going into this not realizing what type of challenge it is until like you're halfway through it, and then it's just like part of the experience. Like barter or do all this stuff. Like you're gonna have these low lows, these high highs. But what was cool about it was that we worked so well as a team. And I think when you do something like this and you tackle a project like this, because I call it a project, it was a project that we wanted to do, that you need to have a solid team around. So like when I sent that text out in June and I was like, I need confirmation if you guys are all in or all out, because the people that were all in, like those are the people that like you want to go down there and do that with, because you know that you're going to have each other's backs. And that's so important doing something like this.
A couple specific details here. So let's talk about shoes.
I love my shoes.
So I wore
we were shoe buddies.
Yeah, we were.
I wore Nike Ultrafly, which is a carbon plated trail shoe. And I felt like that's also part of the reason why it kept overloading my quads,
Yes.
because on the descent, it pitches you forward. And I know I was just ramming the front of my shoe and just ramming my quads all the way down. What did you wear?
I had a pair of Ultra Experience Wilds, which is what Zach also
And
wore.
I had the same thing.
Yeah.
I suffer from hobbit feet. I have fat feet.
Type 1 diabetes and hobbit feet.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
a serious condition.
Yeah, it's real bad. But hobbits have those big fat. I'm like a extra size and a half in width on my feet.
Are they hairy too?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, they are. Dude, those have been hairy since high school because Adam and I went to high school. They've been hobbit feet since high school.
I used to have to buy my spikes an extra size bigger just so I could
Dude, those
jam
ASIC dirt
the
dogs.
front would be flapping, but the sides would be busting
Dude,
out.
those ASIC dirt dogs. Those
But,
are the only things
God.
for you.
I love ultra shoes specifically because they have that extra foot shape space.
Yeah.
And so especially when you do an ultra, your feet swell. It provide I never had a problem with my shoes that whole run. I absolutely love
Okay,
and recommend
so
those shoes.
From the descent, but I was fine on the north descent.
Yeah.
But the south descent, it's just so sharp. I don't know what the South Kaibab was just so sharp down that
Yeah.
that I was already getting blisters at mile 3,
Well,
and we had to stop and fix that pretty
might have
early
been
on.
it might have been a pace thing too.
Also, I
wonder.
think Trail Toes sold me. Remember how it was all about?
Oh.
Okay, so I'm a big body glide guy. Chafing is one of the biggest things that stresses me out with regards to longer distance runs, and
Especially them thunder thighs.
that never lift, so I don't know why they're big. But I didn't use body glide on my feet, which I usually do.
I thought you bought all that goop to put on your feet.
That's what I'm saying.
And you didn't do it.
I did. That's what
You
I'm saying.
did?
Trail Toes sold me. Like I put them on my
Oh, and it
feet.
didn't
It was
work.
leaking
And it-
out of his shoes within 3
Yes.
miles. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
He
I
had those,
remember you saying that.
goopy toe
Yeah.
marks. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I think it's just too
Mhm.
petroleum based. It's too like Vaseline based, and I just needed something like Body Glide that was just going to stick to me. I didn't have any blisters from that point on because I did have a little Body Glide that I used, and I also use these blister pads. And I did appreciate the Ultra Flies after that. I do think that they are great shoes, but I don't think you should use them if you're going to do massive descents,
Or the Grand Canyon.
because I think they're great for like general trail runs, just your average ultra, but just not something ridiculous like 1,000
That
feet
makes
a
sense.
mile.
I would be curious about how you feel about this. Yeah, I'm thinking about your book and about the physics aspect of it, right? When I think of these plated shoes, I think of both me and him fracturing metatarsals
Mhm.
because we go out and run with them. We're not used to them. And in reality, what those carbon plates are doing is essentially amplifying the forces, right? It's a spring. It's loading up as
Right.
you apply and then applying extra force as it propels you off the ground. So
Yeah.
your feet are experiencing more vertical force than they would under a normal strike.
So
And therefore you're putting yourself under more stress. And this is,
Yeah.
Obviously you know much more about this than I do. But
Says the
I
engineer.
think I wonder if those shoes are maybe a detriment in that scenario for certain people, right? For somebody like me who I have a
Look.
very thin fourth left metatarsal apparently.
Here's what I would say. So you're making a great point. The carbon plates are buckled so that way when you land, they're designed to kick back towards your center of mass and then kick forward. That's how they're buckled. If you're heel striking, they kick back at your center of mass. So it actually creates forces towards your body, not away from your body, propelling you forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what he means. So when I'm descending, I didn't even think of this. It was kicking back towards my quads every time, which is why my quads were shaking on the way down. Now, it works out well if you're on relatively flat ground and relatively marathons and things like that. The other reason why I use them though is that my Achilles are so trash relative to the strength of my calves and the strength of my quads and glutes that I do need that added kick forward to supplement my tendon detriment.
Okay.
Now, on the flat, they're fine, but on the descents, they sold me.
Yeah. It's, everybody's shoe needs are different, right? It's funny that Zach and I wore the exact
Well,
same shoe. But
In my experience with Ultra is that my feet and ankles get wrecked. I love Topo. I love Topo. But and this probably wasn't a smart idea, but it worked out. I gambled and it worked out. I had to get a new pair of shoes. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to try the Ultra Wild experience.
Mhm.
And I had no foot problem whatsoever when we were there. My ankles, after we got into the 40, 30, high 30s and 40 miles, they were getting sore, but my feet didn't hurt and my ankles were relatively okay. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I think it's because it had that right combination of support, but also like response to where, because it also kind of rocked a little bit, but it wasn't enough like as aggressive as the Nike shoe. But it really, I was shocked. I was so shocked on how well my feet felt.
I almost always lose at least one toenail in an ultra. I didn't lose any in the
No.
Grand Canyon. And that was my first. I mean, I had done some 30-mile runs with those shoes to break them in. That was my first, run with those shoes. And I was impressed. I enjoyed it. And I think the other reason I selected those shoes, and I'm sure you thought the same thing, was they have a few millimeters of drop to them.
Yes.
Right. Most of the ultras have.
Right.
Oh, so you had a 4mm drop ultra.
Yes.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's the thing. Most of those trail shoes are zero drop. And
Zero
I know
drop.
that's a big thing. A lot of people prefer it, but for
It's
me,
it's a new
especially,
thing. It's a new thing with ultra.
especially
I
when
know. Yeah, I hear you on that.
Okay.
especially when I ascend, or certain times during ascents and descents, just depending on the terrain, I find myself landing closer to my heel, and when I do, if it's a zero drop shoe, I start to get certain calf pains, and I it's a subtle difference, but I've noticed in those shoes with the 4mm, it helped me quite a bit. I did not have those same pains on the ascents or descents.
What I would say, pivoting a little bit, is I said this around Havasu Springs. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Whatever.
Havasupai Gardens.
Yeah.
We were shocked by that. There was no gardens there. Adam,
There was like 10 plants.
yeah. I mean, how are there gardens in the Grand
Yeah,
Canyon?
it
There's
makes
no
no
water.
sense.
It was actually surprisingly green with that little river running through.
It's just a trendy thing that they say.
Okay, so that's the other thing. On the Bright Angel Trail on the way up, there's a portion where you run through the creek, like up. So that
Yeah.
was tricky. Like we were like, at that point, we were like, do not take us the wrong way right now, please.
Yeah.
And we had this group behind us and we were sort of leading the way because we were just charging ahead of everybody because we were dying essentially
Just wanted to get done.
and wanted to get it done. And we went, you literally have to walk essentially through the creek and beside the creek. And it's a little alarming and you kind of wonder if you're on the trail. So note to self, there's 2 sections of this whole 46-mile trek. One is the overlook where?
It's Cedar Ridge.
Cedar
on
Ridge
South
overlook
Kaibab
on the
Trailhead.
South Kaibab. That was
I'm
tricky.
sure during the daylight, it's very obvious where to go.
Not during the
At
night.
3
Yeah.
in the morning.
The second
It is
was
not.
the Bright Angel on the way up out of the canyon. You wonder if you're on the right trail because you are running literally
Like-
in the creek or next to the
Right.
creek, and it's tricky. So, yeah.
Or
So, anyways,
walking
right around that portion, I had deemed Adam Smokepole here, who is his trail name, the MVP, and then Zach, who was Wild Turkey or Big Turkey.
Big turkey.
Big Turkey.
Big turkey.
All right. Big Turkey, as he had the Spirit Award.
And how about you?
So my name was Wacka Wacka Doo Doo Yeah,
Wacka wacka doo doo, yeah.
which is a reference to the Albuquerque song from Weird Al Yankovic.
Great
And-
song.
It's a great song. It's a 10-minute song of irrelevant
God.
information. Wacka Wacka Doo Doo Yeah. That's my trail name. And I got the disability award. So I got the handicap award.
No, you get the toughness
So
award.
this guy, the MVP, so he organized the details of the specifics of the timing of things. We were always referencing him when the next water stop was. He was the most attentive. And I really think he has the most potential of any of us in ultra running.
Mhm.
He's compact, he's efficient, he's strategic, but he's got to work on his mind.
Mhm.
I'm a scaredy cat. I have a lot of anxiety.
He's got a lot of anxiety,
I'm-
so he's got to work on his mind.
I
Zach
agree.
gets the Spirit Award because, like we said earlier, Zach always kept us buoyant. He always kept us in a solid state, kept us, really focused, and kept our spirits high, and never detracted energy from. Sometimes you're around some people and they're just negative, and they pull some energy from you, and it's just a
Man.
negative experience. That's not this guy. This guy, if you get him on the trail, he's going to uplift you. He's going to be positive. He's going to suffer along with you, but you'll never know.
mean,
That's a
Zach.
shock.
That's Zach anywhere. That's not just Zach on the trail.
Yeah.
That is Zach to a T.
I appreciate that. And then how about you, dude?
Like I said, I get the
Describe you.
disability award. I get the handicap
No,
award.
No, absolutely not.
I
you guys
disagree with that though.
You guys are 8 years younger than me.
And that's
So I think
it's
you're-
another reason why I believe you deserve all of the things that you went through during that. I mean, you had blisters happening early on. You had your fall. You had so many other and of the three, I mean, none of us trained appropriately for this. I would say I probably got the most running in.
Probably.
But all of the things you went through, and then you just gritted. I mean, you were pulling us through the box at one point, and that was after you smashed your knee.
Well, that's when he was he was sprinting all out to get the Phantom Range.
Dude, I was dying for that lemonade.
The toughest person out there was Leo by far.
And by the way, like anybody that wants to do rim to rim to rim, and you're on these on these pages, and they talk about it's the best lemonade.
It's not.
It's just Minute Maid.
Dude, it's Minute Maid. But
It's
literally
so good.
And the lady in line was like, she literally was like, it's just Minute Maid lemonade, but it's the best right now because it's 108 degrees. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Like,
it was so.
You got squirrels attacking you. You got
just
heat.
like the canyon, right? It's life is life, but after
Yes.
doing that, everything feels so much.
look, I always say this. Rogan
Sweeter.
always says, Joe Rogan, he always says, the hardest thing that has ever happened to you is the hardest thing that has ever happened to you.
Right.
And when you do something like this, that's the hardest thing that's ever happened to you.
Mhm.
And so all of a sudden your 8, 10, 12-hour workday feels like nothing
Right.
because you survived the Grand Canyon.
Right.
Or whatever
We
is the
have
hardest
no
thing for you.
excuse now. We have no excuse to be negative. Like we really don't. Like that's
Yeah.
the way I view it in my head is like why be so upset when like you suffered so, like dude, you had to get IVs the next day and you're like, yeah, dude, I want to do it again in like a couple years, which like we've been talking about it. But it's like it's so
The
true,
H
though.
was O.
Yes, the heat was on.
Hey, here we go. How many times did you roll your ankle?
0. I'm
Like 4 times.
Each ankle or just total?
Probably more on twice on my left, 50-50.
Yeah. I rolled it, roughly 4 times. Yeah, 2 in each side.
really
Mhm.
You didn't roll your ankle at all?
not once.
That's
Because
what
he's
I'm
got
saying.
those hobbit
guy's-
feet.
This
I
guy,
got my hobbit
oh,
feet,
dude.
man. I
Yeah.
can just.
He's got lily pads
try-
for feet, dude.
you guys up there, you're
Dude.
6 feet, whatever. I'm
If
down
you
here
watch
at
the
5'8",
extended
like,
cut,
yeah.
dude, if you watch the extended
he's like
cut of
a
Lord of the
string.
Rings, he's in the background.
That's
Going up
we had
more.
Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli running after the orcs.
Dude, you're
in the
Legolas.
canyon.
That's awesome. He was always my
I'll
favorite.
take it. I'll take it.
All right, I like that.
Yeah, that's a good
We-
comparison.
I think
I'll
that
be
was better
Gimli.
for us because we were always comparing ourselves to like Seinfeld. And I was Seinfeld, and you were George.
I'm
and
Kramer
Zach was Kramer.
tweaking
But
out.
with how neurotic and anxious I was the entire time, George was accurate.
What?
You would
What?
come up with scenarios that I could never have
Well,
imagined.
I'm literally okay. So when I know, so I had a pace chart built out, and I have a spreadsheet, and I'd love to stick it
Which
up on.
he's
the
looking
internet.
at, by the way,
Well,
right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at a doctored version of it here, but I had pace charts and I had memorized them, and I knew as we were ascending the North Rim, and this added to my anxiety. I knew we would be coming back down in the box, and my wife, I love her.
Can you?
She talked to me about heat stroke, and I knew how hot it was going to be. I knew
Okay, so what were the cardinal signs?
I nausea, dizziness.
What's the key one? You
Shoot.
stop sweating.
Yeah, you get really dry.
Yeah.
and which I did do. I had
Yeah.
4 ounces of water.
I
left
kept
to
looking-
the
So did
Phantom
you.
Rants.
I kept looking at my forearm. You have to look at your forearms and you have to see, like, do you have equal distribution of sweat? Forehead, forearms. So remember that.
So but I knew all that hours before I knew I was like, at this pace, we're going to end up in the box, which is the hottest part of the canyon at the hottest part of the day. And so I had anxiety about that until we hit Phantom Ranch. Like
On the way back.
The whole, maybe from the time we got water at the end of our first descent at like 5 a.m. to getting to Phantom Ranch at 3 p.m.
Yeah. So this
I had anxiety that entire time about the heat.
that section consumed about 50% of our group texts.
It's true though.
Because
And that's when I fell. So that just like, it's
I
just
didn't
like,
have a
dude,
thought of it at all.
even the tracker lost in there, and that's why. Because in the box, it kind
I
of.
would agree. Like I was shocked. So we'd say 108. I was shocked at how it didn't. I mean, we're from the Midwest. Like we
Yeah.
had a warm
Now-
fall.
now-
105, 108.
The thing that I will,
It feels-
agree with you though, was that when we did have to get water, it felt like you were in an oven. But once you started moving,
Yeah.
then it was like, okay. we're
Also-
moving.
Airflow helps
It does.
dissipate heat,
Especially in the dry,
Yeah.
in that dry climate and
Mhm.
everything.
Also, you will get sunburnt on your ears and your mouth.
Not
You're
if you
shocked
show up
by-
with my cool hat.
Dude, this dude,
I had the Darth
this
Vader
dude right
hat.
here. This dude right here is putting Body Glide on his lips. And we're gonna have to put that up in this episode of you putting Body Glide on your lips.
Dude,
gotta
I was
put that in
praying.
there.
I was like, give me that body glide. I was like, yeah, my lips were so like
So
they were just so
I never
rough. I
s-
couldn't even believe it.
and I never saw either one of you. I had SPF 70 in the front zipper of my pouch. I applied that to my forearms multiple times into my nose. I was wearing a hat that had a sun shield, so I didn't worry about my neck.
Yeah.
I was also wearing a collared shirt because I'm a weirdo. I did not see either one of you apply sunscreen too,
No,
and that's something. I mean, you're probably not. You probably don't. Have
I didn't
to deal with
even
that.
like. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't even see you apply sunscreen to
Yeah.
your body.
I did. I did do it while I was running at one point.
Wow, that's
But-
crazy. Where was I at?
Yeah, we're in outer space, I think.
I would say that that's probably something too. I would 100% recommend, especially I tend to get sunburnt.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend wearing sunscreen.
I wore I had a hat that was from 2008, and it was like the jean fabric type
Yeah.
hat. I don't advise to that unless you really want to.
Well,
It was very sentimental.
It was sentimental.
2008 track and field hat. I also had a hat from 2007, but it was a tech hat.
And you had your MCC,
Yeah,
your Malone,
my old school
color.
Malone shirt. Here's what I thought of later. We never saw anything that could kill us.
We heard that rattlesnake, or you heard that rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
heard-
figured it was because it was 108. Nothing wanted to be out near.
You're probably right.
So we got lucky. So if it was like 80 degrees, we might have been like surrounded by scorpions and snakes.
Yeah,
Did you
rattles.
guys hear that boulder fall? This was when
What?
I went ahead of you a bit on the
Um,
ascent. There was
wait.
a boulder fall when we were ascending the South Rim.
Bro, I didn't even
It
know
wasn't-
about this.
it
Wait,
wasn't-
Bright Angel?
Yeah, it wasn't close to us, but there was some rocks that tumbled
So
down.
I feel like
Dude, that's crazy.
I feel like okay, there was a
It was
point,
within the last mile and a half.
there was a point where I was ascending and I heard something because there was an avalanche that happened when Jacqueline and I were in Switzerland in September. And I was like, you hear that? It's an avalanche. And it sounded similar. And I was like, no, that can't be anything. But it probably was that boulder. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about that, huh?
Dude, so many things could kill you in the canyon.
Yeah.
Cliffs, boulders, avalanches, scorpions, rattlesnakes.
Hey Adam, did you hallucinate at one point? Can you tell that story? Because I loved it. Like
I didn't hallucinate.
he did.
I spent the last like 9 miles hallucinating.
No way.
Yeah.
God, the things I didn't know.
Dude, were you there when the next day when we were in the Airbnb packing up and he's like packing his bag and he starts to laugh profusely and I was like, what? And he goes, can I tell this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I go, what? Like, what are you laughing at? He goes, dude, at one point when I was hallucinating, I picked up these rocks thinking that they were really cool. Like I thought they were like gemstone rocks. And he opens his hand and has these thing of rock. He goes, they're just rocks.
So, classic sign that you are behind on hydration and nutrition is you begin to
He
hallucinate.
picked up rocks. Like, these are sweet.
My
had-
daughters are gonna love these.
I had multiple. There was an instance just past that sandy portion of the trail. So when you get through Bright Angel Bridge across the Colorado River, you start ascending Bright Angel. There's a sandy portion of the trail. There was a large orange rock. I was convinced it was my shop vac, and I thought, why is my shop vac on this trail?
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I was right in front of him at that point. I was talking to you
You
at
were
that point
talking to me, and I had to talk myself. That's not my shop vac.
because you were
And then-
behind.
Yeah.
The rocks
'cause I
happened.
took that picture.
The rocks happened like a mile later, and then that first big switchback, I thought there was a tunnel on the side of that switchback, and I was like, "Well, why don't I just take that? I bet that's." When I got close, I realized, no, that's a wall. There's no tunnel. But I had to get within like here to like within 10 feet to
Wow.
realize that's
Funny.
not. And
That's not something I ever experienced.
that one
Yeah,
cliff,
same.
I thought it was Jabba the Hutt like talking to me. I had so many weird. I wish I remembered. I wish I remember. And that's why when I got to Havasupai with 4.5 to go, I was so afraid from just like wondering if everything was real for like 4.5.
Dude,
miles.
that when we were leaving Phantom Ranch, that was probably like, you know, when you have like chores that are like daunting and you're like, dude, I gotta do all these.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that was like times 10 leaving Phantom Ranch and going up, like
Mhm.
'Cause
hearing
you could see
not,
it.
dude. And then there was a point. So there was a point when Leo goes, you had probably just about finished, and me and Leo are walking up that like last little bit. And Leo goes, hey man, we probably have like 10 to 15 minutes left. And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. And then we just like stopped talking and we're just moving. And then he goes, actually, never mind. And I go, I don't even want to hear what you have to say. Because at this
Because I
point,
recalculated. I was like, we're moving like a turtle right
and
now.
I go, I don't even want to know what you have to say. I don't care. We're just going to finish when we finish. And the blessing, and I know you and I both had this, is when that guy with his 2 little daughters, dude,
They were like a switchback.
he
from the top, yeah.
rejuvenated us to the absolute T, because like we were just so like out of it. And he goes, dude, because he goes, you guys are doing rim to rim to rim, huh? Like that's what you guys look like
Yeah.
you're doing. And we're like, yeah. And he goes, dude, you guys are almost done. I promise you guys are almost done. And we were like,
We needed to hear that. And then you left me.
mhm.
So you started like scooting quicker. I pulled out my phone and that's when
Yeah.
I recorded the video.
Mhm.
I'll play it at the end of this. And I was just like, dude, and I just was recording like a minute of me coming up to the very end
It
of
was
the
longer
trail.
than that. It was 3 minutes.
Was it 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 minutes and 20 seconds. Sorry.
Yeah. So that guy was like awesome. So
Yeah.
like, you know, the other thing too about that day was we'd only come across one other person that was doing rim to rim to rim.
Mhm.
And we had passed hundreds.
Word got around.
What'd you say, about 100 hikers?
Oh,
Roughly.
Well,
Roughly.
maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Close.
And every
not.
one of them was like uplifting,
Yes.
positive. Oh my God, you guys are my heroes, all this stuff.
And word got around.
And word got around about us. Yeah, they
Yeah.
were like, oh, you guys were the guys, you know, and
Like, you guys passed us earlier this morning.
what we did that day to everybody around us was pretty epic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think it was really cool that people were so kind and uplifting. You know, and I saw this too when I watched videos or read stories or got feedback from other people that had done it, people that had done it successfully, and people that had suffered and run into hikers that offered them food or water or encouragement. Just generally, I think in those circumstances, you find the best in people. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
we were fortunate enough when we were out there to find some really great people that were very encouraging.
It was a really epic day.
Yeah.
Like, it was.
So, okay, we're kind of coming close to the end here,
Yeah.
rounding third. It was an epic day. What would you say you guys would do different? Let's start with you, Smoke Pole.
Don't smoke in your 20s. No, I would say there's a
That's
number.
That's why it's called that.
Yeah, I would say that there's a number of things I would do differently. Number one, I would train more diligently.
Yeah.
You know, I think I personally did a good job of getting at least some mileage in, of training with my pack on. I wore my pack all the time. I did a good job of doing nutrition because I was forced to, and of spending time with my poles. But I would say that getting more mileage in, and especially more elevation in, would
Yeah.
be important. So preparing more.
Yeah.
From a approaching the day. So we had aspirations of touring Flagstaff
well,
and spending time in
Even
Flagstaff.
get into the details of the water and how you would change the water and all that.
Yeah, I know, in the water pack and
walk through that.
conserving that. So because of the heat and because of the day, I chose to fill my
I'm gonna
water
dip
at
out.
every stop.
We'll keep talking.
I chose to fill my water at every stop. And I would say that wasn't necessary in certain parts of the climate. We got lucky where every water stop was available to us.
Yeah, we
There
did.
weren't any that were closed for the winter because of the heat, and there weren't any that were damaged despite the issues with the Trans-Canyon pipeline. If you were able to be more conservative with your water, I think you could have done better, because water's half of your pack weight at least, if not more. And I spent so much time getting to water stops, still having at least a liter in my pack, and thinking I've been carrying 7 extra pounds for no reason. So being more efficient with your water, if you know it's going to be there, I think is, and having that experience now, we can say that.
Right.
I would say too, because we stayed at Flagstaff and drove 90 minutes before we even started. We drove to the lodge, then took a taxi to the trailhead, and then when we finished, we had to drive. Thankfully, I felt okay when we finished enough to drive 90 miles back.
I was worried about that. I'm going to be honest with you. I was like a mile and a half left in the whole journey.
Oh,
It kept crossing my mind, like, who's driving home?
That rush of adrenaline I got at the end, which I can drive. It's fine.
keep moving.
Which worked out.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you on that.
I
Stay
would
at the village.
Stay at the village.
Stay at the village.
And the taxi's 24 hours. You don't have to worry about getting from Bright Angel to South Kaibab. Stay at the Bright Angel Lodge. Stay at one of the cabins that are there. Have your lodging right there, because having to do anything but focus on that is just going to take away from the day. Spending an extra 3 hours in the car did not help us. It was fun.
Right.
But I mean, if we're going to do it again, I would not recommend that.
Yeah. And like, I would 100% agree with you. Like, I loved staying in Flagstaff. Like, I loved having that and like being able to like experience a new place. But it was also, I didn't realize how nice the village was, because it's been so long since I've been there. And the fact that there's so much there and so much to do, like, dude, when we do it again, because we've talked about it.
Yeah, that's important.
We are going to stay there.
Yes.
And like, that's really important, because like, dude, that experience is so special to me now. And like, it's going to stick with me forever. It was in a way, like, I don't want to say life-changing, but it made me appreciate what life is. And like, to really enjoy life, you have to kind of put yourself into challenging situations. And I could go deeper in that, but I'm not going to. But the thing that I would probably do differently is, one, train more. So like more time in the weight room. Definitely like, dude, deadlifts, squats, lunges, like anything, because the amount of steps that were in the canyon, it was more than I anticipated. Like, nothing really surprised me. Like, cause I was just I was prepared for a challenging day. So I was just prepared for a day in the canyon. But what challenged me was the bottom of the canyon. So I wasn't prepared for the amount of unevenness in the bottom of the canyon. So like, yeah, spending more time doing squats, spending more time doing lunges, like deadlifts, whatever it might be, to get the legs stronger. Like, that would be probably my number one thing that I would do. But I thought, all in all, like, my nutrition was pretty much on point. Like, especially when it's that hot, you're not going to eat as much as you think you are. But like, as long as you stay on top of your hydration, like, I consumed a lot of liquid, and like, I was pretty much cashed out of my 2-liter bladder and my flasks at most of like the major water stops that we really wanted to fill up at. But the thing that I would do differently is what we talked about, is probably like hike the descents, just drink the flasks, save the bladder for when you're in the canyon, because you can get away with it at that point. And then like, yeah, just be better about how you hydrate, because the thing that probably hindered us the most is that, and granted, like, we were just trying to stay on top of our hydration, is that we spent so much time at the water stops.
Yeah.
And we can cut that down a little bit if we manage our hydration better.
It was 20 to 30 degrees hotter than the average October.
But,
so that, I mean, we rightfully so, right? We came into it prepared, and with inexperience, we said, hey, we're going to do it. But yeah, now that we have that experience, I agree with you.
But now, yeah, like with that, but like anybody that's like wanting to do this as like a bucket list thing, like, dude, just like it took us about 13 hours and some change to run the whole thing, which is on par, probably faster than most.
If you take out our detours, it was 12 and some change.
Some
Actually,
12.
yeah.
So like for Northeast Ohioans that haven't really run like the way that they should have run for this, like just enjoy your day. Just enjoy your day. Take it for what it is. Like if you want to go after it, like definitely I would say focus more on hiking down to the bottom. You can run the base of it pretty well, like hydrate properly, or like just be prepared for just about anything. Like don't let anything surprise you.
I think that's another mistake we made,
Yeah.
was setting a time goal.
Yes.
Going into our first
I
attempt.
agree.
Just even talking about it. And I know we bounced back and forth about what we thought was realistic. And
refresh my memory on this. When we were at Manzanita on the descent, when Leo was like, hey, I think we can like roll through the canyon, get to Phantom Ranch. And then when we get to Phantom Ranch, let's take our break and then we can hike it out before sunset. You guys are getting low on supplies, correct?
I still had
Leo was out of element.
Leo was out of element. I still had about 1,500 calories and 6 elements.
Because there was a point, because at that point, there was like, I'm anticipating to be, so like, here's my advice is that don't anticipate your time goal or the mileage, anticipate just being in the canyon. So like whatever you feel like you're going to bring with you, bring extra, like make sure to have extra, because when you get to a point, like, you know, for Dr. Leo, like he started to run out of element and he wasn't even aware that he was running out, because you're just so like in the moment of like making sure that you're trying to do your best. Well, luckily I had enough to be able to give to him and he was able to barter with me, you know, some salt tabs, but being able to like be prepared for that stuff, like just be prepared to be in the canyon. Like that's the number one thing.
Yeah.
So,
pack extra calories, pack a filter in case we were fortunate enough that
that's a good point.
We did not need to filter any water. And you know, I don't know if that'll be a problem in the future with the construction they're doing in the pipeline.
But if anybody's doing it now or wants to do it like early spring, like be prepared that you have to take a filter. You have to.
Yeah.
You know,
October 21st, they shut, I believe it's the 21st, they shut the pipeline down. So if you're going,
it's coming up.
I don't think anybody's going to want to be going anytime soon, but even after, it's not a bad idea. I mean, the Solomon flasks have that little filter head. It's really light. You can jam that in your pack. It's not a big deal.
Right. But just have fun. Like, it's a fun experience.
That's probably one of my biggest regrets. And I wanted to be prepared because I knew how dangerous it was.
It was, I mean, it was dangerous.
I wanted to take it seriously, but I wish, and it happened kind of naturally eventually when we got in there and just got into it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish from the gun I'd have taken it a little less, more about pace and more about just, hey, we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because in reality, you just doing it is the best thing. And once you've done it, then you can think about pace and, maybe next time I can do this better. I know this is coming. I think we can do much better next time we go out.
We're going to do much better next time. I've already told Jacqueline that we're doing it again. She's not too happy about it, but you know what? Too bad.
Too bad.
But like having that experience, like, dude, when I look back on this, like it's probably my biggest accomplishment athletically. I don't know how you feel, because you and I, like, we obviously had a lot of success in high school. We had success in college, like when we ran together in college at the University of Akron. Like, how does this compare to you in terms of like the accomplishments that you've done? This is by far the number one thing that I've done.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like you said, I think we were pretty similar in our high school and college times. It was maybe some of us better at some races than others, but it was.
So in the preface with that, we went to North Canton Hoover. So anybody that's in Northeast Ohio, so Adam and I were teammates from like high school, freshman, like my freshman year. He was a sophomore all the way until we graduated. And yeah, so like we've spent a lot of time like running together. But yeah, I would say that this is probably up there with one of my best accomplishments.
Oh, absolutely.
How about you, dude? Where does this rank for you?
Hardest thing I've ever done. I wouldn't say best accomplishments.
He's done some pretty cool shit.
He's done some pretty cool stuff. Yeah,
I would say by
Top 5.
far the most pain I've ever experienced.
That's amazing, actually.
And it it, like Adam said, I would have adequately trained for it.
So what would you have done differently? Because we just talked about that.
I would have done. I actually think you could do it still. So my take is everybody's got to know their body, and that's one of the themes of my book is that everybody has to understand what they're bringing to the table. And what I brought to the table was a bird-like frame that's really weak, but a hell of a cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
And so, as you were alluding to earlier, my heart rate never got elevated. I never felt stressed, not 1 second from a cardiovascular standpoint. I never felt out of breath. I never felt stressed, even on the hills, even on the ascents. But I am physically weak. And so I literally would just work on strength. I probably wouldn't even really do much more mileage. I might do another. So basically, I started formally training in the middle of July. And for this, so I basically had 2.5 months? Does that put me at 2.5 months?
If that, yeah.
And I think I was fine cardiovascular wise. I think if I had lifted over those 8 to 10 weeks, I would have been better off. And that would have been the stimulus that I would have added in. But that's just me personally, because I know I come to the table with a pretty big engine, and it's just getting the chassis ready for it. But I genuinely took a beating physically. And I look back and I'm kind of glad, because now I know that about myself, that if I do dabble with ultras, I can get away with like less is more sort of thing. But I do need to make sure that I'm coming in at good core strength, good hip strength, and just solid muscles. Like my calf is thicker, my quads are thicker, and I can just handle a beating like that.
I think that kind of strength training for anybody pursuing a high elevation activity like that, with all of that grade change, is important. And I think Leo is obviously an outlier. He has a lot of physical gifts when it comes to distance running, where he can go out and do that on 2 months of training.
Yeah,
like,
so
you guys would have left me at Manzanita if that was if I'd have shown up running as few miles as Leo did. I would not have made it. You are. I mean,
and I
you
think
are
that's
built
what
different.
that's
too.
what we have to understand. And that's why I made that comment earlier about how I think you are the actually most gifted for ultra running, is that we have to understand what we're bringing to the table. And I'm bringing a very 25K to 40K marathon savvy body. But once I get past that, I need to just not develop my cardiovascular system and really focus on my core strength of getting my hips and pelvis strong and my quad strong, and just making sure I'm adapt on that end. What do you come into it with?
I mean, we know the positive spirit. Like, just for me, I kind of accepted, like, I think that was like the game changer for like our group, was that I just kind of accepted that we were going to be in a very challenging situation, and I didn't really let it bother me too much. And I tried to translate that into everybody else, is like, dude, this is just like the environment that we're in. Like, this is just what we're doing. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, we got to just keep going forward. But yeah, I would agree. Like me being into ultra isn't about trying to like win. If I'm in the position to win, the competitive spirit is going to always like overshadow anything else if I'm in that position. But for me to be successful, I know that I have to be a lot stronger.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be doing more of the weight room stuff. Like, I know I need to be doing core. I need
balance is a big thing too.
Balance.
You know, you guys want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Do you want to hear something really weird? Yeah. Okay. So I don't think I've really shared this, and I put this in the book, but there's a lot of things in the book that I feel like I just want to talk to everybody that got the book to understand like why I put that in there. But there's a portion in there where I talk about where in the exercises where you do 20 rotations counterclockwise or clockwise. And it's at the end of the book. And you do basically, if you can do 20 rotations with your eyes closed and your arms out like a T, and you could do 20 rotations and not get dizzy. The Tibetans who lived in the mountains,
I've read this before.
they basically, that was their clearance. So this is important to understand this with the 5 Tibetan rites, which was like a series, like it was like a rite of passage to basically to Tibetan monks that would be able to do things in the mountains. If you could not rotate 20 times clockwise with your eyes closed in a T position and not get dizzy, if you can't do that, then you do not belong in the mountains. That's what they would say.
Yeah.
And it's really awesome because we know how close we were to death in the canyon.
Yeah.
Inches from death and inches from oblivion.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
And you need to be able to, like, every foot strike has to be precise. Your balance needs to be precise. You need to be present.
Yes.
You need to be mentally locked in, one foot strike after another, focusing on the rocks, focusing on the position, all these things. And that's one thing I would really focus on is balance and strength training heading into this.
I would agree.
I haven't made it that far in the book yet.
That's why I put it
purchased
in
the
there.
book. I'm looking forward to it. I've already felt targeted multiple points. I'm like, oh yeah, I do that wrong. I do that wrong.
I'm a classic like Sagittarius. I'm very blunt, and I tell you how it is.
I love it.
No ifs,
But
ands, or buts.
It's an effort to get you to change and motivate you to make action.
My favorite part, and I know I share this with you guys. The bookmark I use in that book is our park ticket from going to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah. It was an epic day, man.
That was an epic day.
Okay, so let's walk through the details, the specifics. The shuttle is always active. Is that correct?
The 24-hour taxi is available. You can grab the phone number for that or call the lodge and they'll get you set up for that.
So the parking lot is at Bright Angel.
Mhm.
So you park there. You pay the park fee. You get into park. You drive to Bright Angel Trailhead. You can take a 24-hour taxi from there. You just got to call. You can Google the number. You just got to call. Roughly there might be like a max of 45 minutes to an hour of a max.
Oh, yeah. We waited maybe 10 minutes. And
We
most
waited-
people said 20 minutes from the time you call to the time you get to the trail because it's a 10-minute drive. And usually the farthest away he is at the trailhead.
Okay, so let's just say half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
A lot for that. So in case you call and they had just left on a shuttle, you can, basically surmise that you might have a half hour to get ready or whatever. But that's important to know that is always there in case you want to start at midnight, like the gentleman who we saw, or at like 3:30 in the morning like we did. So that's important to understand the details of that. And the lodge is sort of always open. So you can go in there and use bathroom at the lodge at the Bright Angel. You can use bathrooms there. You can sort of freshen up if it's chilly, which it was for me, chilly in the morning.
It was low 40s when we started.
Yeah. So those are some of the details that you can map out and understand that that's always going to be there for you. You do want to make sure though that you're checking on water, that the pipes are open at spots.
Yeah. Check the park website, make sure it is accurate. You can
there
also,
there is a link for you to check that too.
Yeah.
So
you can also ping. I personally talked to somebody who had just come out of the canyon 2 days before us who said, yes, they fixed the water at Supply Tunnel. Everything's fine.
It was a game changer, man.
Yeah. We talked about this while you were gone too. Something we suggested was to stay at the canyon, to stay at the rim, at the Bright Angel Lodge or one of the cabins, because having to do a 90-minute drive prior to all of this is a lot of added effort.
So we stayed in Flagstaff and then drove in,
which was fun.
And then we had Wendy's on the way back out.
Dave's double
change
baby.
Oh, baby.
Hey, we were saying that. So I was saying that when we were like making our way out, I was trying to think who would be in the best position to drive us home. And at that point, I had no idea how we were going to get home.
This guy got a second wind and he felt very confident that he was the man.
Great.
He was the man for that job.
Yeah, he was.
I was the first. That was the first fast food sandwich I've had since I got out of the hospital in February. It was the first
that
one.
chicken sandwich.
Look, I
Worth
got you
it.
beat. That was the first fast food I had in probably a decade.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And so I texted my wife that I was having Wendy's, and my wife was like, my kids would be happy.
Respect.
Because they know me. They know I don't eat stuff like that.
You were ready. I didn't. You taught me about the whole lettuce
Yeah.
instead
Dude,
of the bun.
that Dave's double with cheese was so good. Going down and lemonade.
This podcast brought to you by Wendy's.
Dave's double.
So we talked about getting to the canyon, right? Staying at the lodge, the 24-hour taxi. If you want to start at South Kaibab,
Mhm.
it's there. Highly recommend it. You don't have to worry about driving or leaving a car somewhere. Now, what about the descent?
Take your time, man. Oh, not take your time. but,
Okay,
like,
so if
hike it
I was two things. Like, I want to do this. My wife, for some reason, is weirdly interested in this.
really?
Yeah.
So is my wife.
Really? Jacqueline is not, but we can get a group to go and Jacqueline can go and enjoy herself. And
My
hang out
kids
with her.
want to go too.
Okay. So when I was thinking about it with my wife, I was thinking, okay, let's, like what I would do different. We probably would start at midnight and we would take our time in the descent. She's tough. And like I kept joking. I joked a couple times during
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was the ascent or
It was-
descent
it
on the
was-
North Rim about how her Zumba quads would be fine during
I
that.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
My wife would be fine because of her, thick Brazilian thighs.
She'd be
her-
beating us up the hill. I remember you saying that. Yes.
Yeah. So she would be cool with that. If we were to do it again and challenge the 10-hour,
If
which I
we
think-
were, when we do it again.
could you think we could challenge a
Yes.
10-hour?
100%. 100. No.
Like, let's think about
don't
this.
don't be negative on this. 100%.
10 to 12 hours.
Yes, 100%.
That's a huge window. 12 hours, I don't think is.
I think we could
12
do 12
hours.
hours.
Dude.
If we actually got training in and we followed some of these things we're about to
Yes.
say, I don't think that targeting 12 hours is completely.
How about 10 hours?
No.
Yeah.
How about 9 hours?
You guys have fun.
No, dude, you're gonna do it with us. You're gonna bulldoze your way through it.
I'm not even kidding. I genuinely think almost darn near walking down the descent would be
Yes.
smart
So,
Yes,
I can.
because you just salvage your quads to be able to
and then we can hammer through the canyon.
hammer through the hot box.
Yes,
I would
And
almost say
think
that
about the window of light that you have if you're attempting 10 hours. Like you can start so much later, so you're not starting in the dark. That's a thing. And then think about the water stuff you were just talking about, like how you didn't have to fill up every time and all that sort of stuff.
you would have to fill up even less if it was cooler. Yeah.
and the fact that we have experience with it and we know.
We know to turn right. We know.
Yes, like all that stuff.
No, I would agree that I'm not contesting that we would
That
be
is
quicker
5.5 hours
when
quicker.
we go back. I don't think it's 5.5 hours.
I do.
So if I
I
want
do.
to,
That is a third quicker.
I admire your confidence. What I will say on the topic is, and this is meant to hearten you guys. When I looked at our adjusted pace to our reported times on the GPS relative to what I had targeted for, say, a 14-hour pace. You think about how tired you guys were on the back half. We were ahead of pace on almost every segment from the descent of the North Rim to the top of Bright Angel at the end. We were ahead of our targeted 14. So we were actually faster relative to what I predicted. Right?
Are you serious? Really?
well,
Where did we make the gains?
Because I predicted
when we got our skateboards out and went down the north.
because I predicted we would be about 20% slower on the return
Right.
trip from fatigue, right? So there's a bit of a buffer built into there.
Right.
But based on that prediction, we were actually we were more consistent than I expected on our return trip.
So,
So I
what you're
think-
saying is we got a chance.
We have room to improve. And I also think, if we had uncharacteristically warm weather,
Right.
should we go back at better weather, we would probably have about a half hour to improve just on the weather.
Even if I think if we go back around the same time and it's the same weather, like I think that we can. Hey, girl.
Hey, hi, buddy.
Like, I think if we, that was Mariah, that was Leo's daughter, by the way. But I think the fact that like we know what to expect, and I think honestly, taking real food is going to be like, we're not going to spend 40 minutes at North Rim. We're just not.
No,
We're not. We're going to spend maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes. That's huge.
Yeah. I think, okay, so staying at the rim, having the taxi,
Yep.
conservative on the descent to avoid burning out your quads,
Yep.
or, hopefully because we've trained more,
Right.
not having to be as conservative because
Right.
we are stronger on the descent. And I do think that strength training or training on, some strength or running equivalent to get yourself that climb
Right.
capability and descent capability can help you on those sections.
Right.
So then when you get to the bottom, you're going up to Cottonwood. What advice would you give?
If you're feeling good, stay within that and be conservative on the ascent up.
Because it is an ascent.
It is an ascent. And like
more than you think.
It's more than you think. And like I definitely underestimated the north ascent. Like I knew that we were going up to 8,000 feet, but it was more gradual than I thought, but much harder when I finally got to the points where it got hard. And it really, I mean, it wrecked me to a point. And yeah, just to be prepared for that. Like, just know that, like, let the north ascent be what it is. Like, you're going up to 8,000 feet. And if you're from this area or you're from an area that like you don't get much elevation in where you live, like, don't get consumed by it like I did.
Yeah.
Because it honestly, I mean, it was tough. It was probably the toughest part of my day. So that's what I would do.
What about you, Leo? So we're down in the canyon, Phantom Ranch, going to Cottonwood, heading towards the North Rim. What advice would you give people?
I would say, it's kind of like when you're running a marathon and you're trying to run for a PR, and so anybody that's been in this situation, early in the race, any little like quick surge, quick rush to get water, you're talking with somebody and you're abrupt, you can't do that. You cannot waste that little bit of energy. You have to stay calm. You have to stay collected.
Right.
Every single movement has to be precise, slow, controlled, because you can't even imagine how awful that ascent is on the north. And so you just need to make sure that when you're going through that section, you're not wasting any unnecessary energy and you're just getting through it at a decent clip.
Right.
To consume, some of the lower elevations, some of the lower, ascents. So that way, when you hit the North Rim, you have ample energy to just spark up, and you don't need to take as much time on the North Rim to basically recoup. So like in a marathon, when you're trying to run like a PR, your first 15 miles, I mean, you're just locked in. You're just making you have a lot, you're sitting on a mountain of energy, but it's slowly being tapped out, but you can't waste it. Even with those little bit of movements, you can't waste it talking to people. You can't waste it surging, doing any quick movements like that. You're just trying to, you need to understand that the last 10K will be very difficult. That is how I would go back to that initial South Rim to North Rim and attempt that section.
Yeah. Maybe a little lighter packs, a little more conservative.
Lighter packs, yep.
And we were talking about this as well, the ascent, technically, just from Bright Angel to Cottonwood, right? Before the actual rim ascent starts, that's still 1,500 feet in those, 6-7 miles between Bright Angel and between Phantom Ranch and
That's
Cottonwood.
like a good day on Wetmore Trail if you're from Northeast Ohio.
Yeah.
You just can't imagine how long those switchbacks are.
Yes.
When you
Like,
when
think
you
of
get
the
to the
section-
actual climb, it's
What was the section between the mules where we saw the mules? What was that called?
that was so we saw
That
the-
was,
on the way up. We saw
Supai Tunnel.
Yeah, Supai Tunnel.
Okay.
That to the
Supai-
top is 1.7 miles.
Dude, okay, so Supai Tunnel to the top of the North Rim is 1.7 miles.
I was.
We-
cooked.
What did that literally felt like 10 miles to me.
We
Yeah.
did it at.
It felt like a 10-mile long
we
run.
were hiking at that point. We did it at 25 minutes per mile pace.
Dude,
Uh,
I can't even stress how awful
Yeah.
that was. And I mean, it was like, it was again just, I had this theme in my head of like, when we got off of the South Kaibab, just finish this.
Yeah.
That was my theme. And remember what I told you guys at Havasu Gardens or whatever it's called? I was like, land the effing plane.
Yeah,
yes.
right?
landed.
Yeah.
Like
As
when
a
you're,
helicopter was landing behind
Yeah.
us, I remember that.
when you're a pilot, like you think like, yeah, the 99.9% of the flight is easy, but the last landing portion is super difficult. So you have to be attuned to it. So when you're trying to close out these events, you just got to land the plane. You got to land it. You got to get done. And I just kept thinking that in my head, even when I was hitting those portions.
Right. Right. Yeah. That was like my small victories then turned into like getting up the switchback. So like I would get up one part and I'm like, victory. That was awesome. Here we go.
That's a good way to
Victory.
do it.
That was awesome. Victory. And like, yeah, you just got to chunk it out. Like you just got to know that like the canyon is going to whip your butt no matter which way you slice it, dice it, look at it. But if you, again, like if you chunk it out and you make checkpoints and you like make little victories along the way, like it's possible. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people can do this.
Spin it into something positive.
Yes.
I remember listening to the Connie Gardner episode you guys did, and she was talking about her going for the American record and just that last section, just doing the math in her head constantly, which is how I run too. I'm doing math in my head constantly, thinking about like if I run this pace, how much time. I'm always like when she said that resonated with me so much. But it's a slippery slope when you start to do it and you're at a detriment, right? I did this on the switchback, and your approach better just like, hey, you get to the end of it. Yes, little victory. I'm sitting there calculating. All right, this step is like 9 inches tall. If all these steps are 9 inches and it takes me 2 steps to do that, and I have to go 3,000 feet up, this is how many steps I have to go. That's the kind of math I was doing,
I'd be
and I
tumbling down the
made
canyon if I did
myself
that.
panic. Don't do that. Don't do that.
0% of me was thinking that.
Yeah, that was a bad idea.
I just was amazed at how it kept going. I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't understand how we've been going up for hours and I'm still looking at the
Dude,
top of the
Dude,
canyon.
even when we ran
was
into that
amazing.
guy and his 2 daughters, and you're like, he's like, you're almost there, and you're like looking at, you're like, are we almost there?
It's like looks so much higher.
You're like, really, we are?
I didn't believe it.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was an emotional thing.
it was. It was.
And I highly encourage people to do things that,
yes,
you know, are physically demanding, physically painful. They are, you know, the anterior mid-singular cortex of the brain gets developed. It's a portion of your brain that just deals with pain and discomfort and just hardens your soul, you know, and just makes you a hardy person. You know, it's the reason why Holocaust victims outlive their families. It's a reason why people that have really challenged themselves, you know, people want to, a lot of doctors, a lot of other skeptics will say, oh, this is terrible for you. And what about this? And what about that? It's like, dude, when you put yourself through these kind of things, you just know you can deal with a lot. And whether it's divorce, whether it's family drama, whether it's physical trauma, you know, physical injury, you know, physical diagnosis like type 1 diabetes, and, you know, whether it be cancer or heart disease or whatever, like you just got to challenge yourself in these ways. And this just makes you so much stronger in the end.
yeah,
That's why these kind of things exist. We fabricate them. And what is the rim to rim to rim? I mean, it's this fabricated thing. You know, it's the reason why on the back of my arm I have time and space tattooed there. It's like time and space. Like we just literally invented this R3 thing as a mechanism to teach us how to be tougher and to challenge ourselves and to basically just be better human beings.
I 100% agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah, and to experience God's creation in the
Yeah.
process.
Yes.
It was. I mean, for me, it was a healing journey, right?
Yes.
And to prove to myself that despite my diagnosis and things I was not expecting in my life, I'm still capable of doing some pretty cool
Mhm.
stuff. It was a very spiritual experience, which
Mhm.
I've talked to you guys about my zigzagging spiritual journey. I
Right.
mean, absolutely. I think it's critical for you to do something difficult like this in
Yes.
your life consistently, to challenge yourself and push yourself. And it just makes life that much sweeter.
It does.
So don't look at this, if you've made it to the end of this episode and you're watching us or listening to us, don't make this a thing of like, hey, we're patting ourselves on the back. Listen to the joy in our voices,
Yeah. We're
listen to the laughter, and plan your journey.
Yes. Yeah.
Use this as a platform to plan your journey.
Yeah, reach out. We'd be happy to share any anecdotes or individual experience. I'm sure we missed things talking through this.
I was looking through my notes. I think I covered most of the things.
Sweet.
Any last
I have
tidbits?
so many things rattling in my brain. I remember on the North Ascent, the smell of the
Okay.
Mule
donkey
shit.
mule
Yeah.
excrement
That
was
you got to get used to.
Yeah, I don't know how you prepare for that.
You don't. You
That
don't.
was
that was a slap in the
that
face.
was a low.
You're just hoofing it, man. You're just in the
Literally
dust in
hoofing
the
it.
air. And
The
Yeah.
dust. Did we talk about the dust?
No, we didn't. The dust was terrible.
so you need to know that
So dusty.
if you were like me and you wanted to be bird dogging people in the back of the pack, that's not a great idea. This guy wanted to be trailblazer and to be out in front, and he had quite a bit less dust in his mouth
Watch
than
that
I did.
NASCAR get that clean air,
Dude,
baby.
I had them boogies in my nose, those stickers.
For like 2 days when you like sneeze, like people are like, "What is coming out of your
Made
nose?"
Statues just
Statues.
This is true. Yeah. Little things like that, it's those little components of the event that make it worthwhile. I would say for me, we pretty much have kind of rounded third on all the things that I think are important.
I would agree.
Any last little tidbits on your end, Zach?
No, not really. Like, if anyone is deciding to do this adventure, know that the canyon will give you everything. It'll
Yeah.
give you hardship. It will give you relief. It will give you everything, but you have to seek it out. Like,
Yeah.
and you have to know that this is what you're doing. Like, this is what you signed up for, because when you accept it and you go for it, then you can make the best of it or you can make the worst of it. But as long as
Yeah.
you accept it and you know that the canyon will give you everything, but you have to seek it out, that's the adventure. That's the fun part of it.
And I like that you have that personification of the canyon. And I feel like if you watch Lord of the Rings or any of these great journey kind of movies, there is a personification of everything, really, and so I would agree with that. The canyon, I kept saying in my head, the canyon makes you earn these
Yes.
views. It just
Yes.
makes you earn it. You don't go into the belly of the beast cocky like we did, and it quickly humbled us, like just immediately just humbled us.
Yeah.
within 3 miles.
Within 3 miles.
But we
It
weren't
did.
even that cocky.
We weren't, but we kind of were.
we kinda
We
were.
kind of were.
We kind of were, but okay. So this is where the balance comes back into play. This is where I felt like I was evenly balanced. Like, I knew that we were just going to spend time in the canyon. Like, that was my mindset going in. Like, this is just going to be I don't know what to expect, but I know it's going to be something more than what I'm thinking in my head. But it's still a humbling thing. Like, it still humbled the absolute crap out of me.
Last points on your end? I feel like I've pretty much covered the most key aspects of the details of it, and
we did pretty good.
Yeah, just do it. 100%.
If you wanna
I
do
was
it.
so scared. I mean, these guys saw it. I was very. I there were moments where I thought I was not going to make it out of there.
There were
or-
some panic texts prior to the event. There was, you know, a lot of like calculations and
Yeah.
conversations around that. And in the end, you just have to trust your will. If
Yes.
somebody put a gun to your head and they're like, dude, you got to get to the other side of the canyon and back today, you would do it. You would find a way. But you can't take anything for granted. You know, you can't take one foot strike for granted. You just got to appreciate
Yes.
every moment that you can move normal, every moment that you can hydrate, every moment that you can eat. You just got to embrace all those things because this canyon challenges all of those components.
I would agree.
You got it.
Well put.
All right. So again, Adam is was authentic with that. So if any of you have questions or concerns, we're going to try to get this episode out there to our 3 pages. If any of you have any questions, concerns, you know, want to reach out to us specifically, please feel free. This is a journey that we would encourage everybody of will capability to take, and I think it's important to delve upon something momentous like this. And this, I think, changed a lot of us, and it came at a pretty critical point in each of our lives, and I think it was the right timing, and we'll gladly do it again.
So if
Again-
anybody wants to join,
Come on down.
2 years, a year and a half. When
Who
will
knows,
it be?
man?
Next
Who
week.
knows?
Next week.
2026, maybe.
Yeah,
I'm
but
down
we'll
with
get
that.
it done, and we'll do it
Yeah.
much faster, and we'll appreciate it. And hopefully, we see you guys out there on the trail. So again, thanks for joining us all the way through. But please reach out if you have any questions or concerns. And again, thank you for listening through this. Yep. So it's 2:55. Tons of stars, but I can't see. I can see a couple there, but it's obviously pretty wild how much you can see. We're waiting for the shuttle now. And here is Adam. Headlamp's pretty bright. Ooh, here comes the shuttle.
He's our boy.
It's our boy. Lock up the goods. Here we go. Oh, we gotta walk up. We're about to hit 50 miles, and this guy's gonna make us walk all the way up to the shuttle. Sweet. Headed to South Kaibab from Bright Angel.
Let's go.
See you on the other end, Bright Angel. Dr. Leo here. If you want to catch me in another setting, be sure to check out my YouTube page, Running Rehab, where you will find exercises on how to stay healthy with running, how to improve your running form, and a bunch of other tips and tricks on how to get over common injuries. So again, Dr. Leo here. Be sure to check out my new book, Faster Without Fail, Your Guide to Overcoming Injuries and Running Faster Than Ever. It is now available on Amazon. You could read reviews on the Amazon. You can check out what other people have said about it. But basically, if you want to revolutionize your running form and better understand how to stay injury-free within the sport, this is your guide. Feel free to reach out and let us know what you think of the book. I would love to hear your feedback. But again, please check it out on Amazon. Faster Without Fail. Appreciate it.